This weekend at Citi Field, we will watch a former Mets first-round pick who's 23 years old and a budding superstar out there patrolling center field. The problem? He'll be wearing a Cubs jersey.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season, and this is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you also want to find some of my written work, you can do so at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor and where I wrote an article about today's show topic. Pete Crow-Armstrong was trading him, the biggest mistake the Mets have made in the Steve Cohen era. Before we get into it, did you know that Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. All right, so this weekend, we're going to see two first-place teams go head-to-head. The first-place New York Mets from the National League East going up against the first-place Chicago Cubs from the NL Central. These are potential powerhouses in this league. They're going to get to go head-to-head and have a real measuring stick series to see who is the better team right now. It's going to be a lot of fun, but there's a subplot. And that subplot is one of the best stories of the Cubs season, has been the breakout of their young center fielder, Pete Crow-Armstrong, a former first-round pick by the New York Mets. For those of you who might not remember, PCA was drafted by the Mets in the first round back in 2020, 19th overall, which also makes him the last first-round pick of the Wilpon era. This was at the height of COVID. No baseball was being played at the time. There was a 5-round draft, if memory serves, and Pete Crow-Armstrong was the center of that draft for the Mets. They inked him to a $3.4 million signing bonus. 2021 comes around. The Mets are now under new ownership. PCA gets hurt after playing just 6 games in Port St. Lucie. And then at the trade deadline, all of a sudden, teams are asking about the injured center field prospect. And the Mets were hesitant to deal him, but they wanted to win. And I want to go back and really provide context for why the Mets made that trade, because in retrospect, we know it was a horrible deal. The Mets did nothing in 2021. The Braves stormed back in the second half, stole the division, and won the World Series. The Mets were left with nothing but Trevor Williams by the time we got to 2022. And while Williams was really good on that 2022 Mets team, I don't think a swingman is worth full control over a potential superstar center fielder. And that's what PCA looks like right now. But going back to that season, you have to remember this was year one of the Cohen era. This was a time where the Mets had this incredible turnover and so much going on just around the organization altogether, but particularly in their front office. Sandy Alderson joined Steve Cohen to run the team in the beginning and try to hire some new executives and get the baseball program going in the right direction. He's running the first offseason for the Mets. They hire Jared Porter. They hire Zach Scott to be his assistant. They have to fire Jared Porter in controversy, and Zach Scott becomes the GM. And yet, despite all of that, with a new shortstop in Francisco Lindor, the best move maybe of the Steve Cohen era that happened in the beginning with that trade and the extension, that has looked brilliant in retrospect. That awesome blockbuster trade was the first big one. The next one that came that year was at the deadline when the Mets were in first place. They were 4 games up of the Phillies, 5 games up of the Braves when they made the trade to send Pete Crow-Armstrong to the Cubs for Javier Baez. And at the time, they had maybe the MVP frontrunner because Jacob deGrom was unbelievable that season. He made 15 starts. He pitched to a 1.08 ERA. Not to mention, he was hitting .364 the last year that pitchers were able to hit, 6 RBIs, 4 runs scored. He was awesome. He was winning almost every single start, or at least the Mets were winning almost every single one of his starts. And they had pretty much led the division, through the entire first half. They had a 4-game lead going into the All-Star break. And then the first game out of the break, Francisco Lindor hits the IL for the first time of his career. He strains his oblique. So the Mets are clinging to this lead, but they're doing a good job in July. They're keeping themselves right atop the National League East. They maintain the same 4-game lead that they had going into the break up until the deadline. And they have an opportunity to trade for Javier Baez to be their short-term replacement at the shortstop position, who is great friends with Francisco Lindor, who was probably in Steve Cohen's ear a little bit, you have to figure. And the idea was he would fill in for Lindor, and the two of them would play together up the middle, and the Mets would win the division. They'd go on a playoff run, and it would all be worth it, even though Baez was a rental. The funny thing about that trade, Javier Baez in his shortened sample to Mets was awesome. Trevor Williams, who was the sweetener in the deal, because I'm sure Zach Scott didn't want to do Baez for PCA for one for one. And even still, probably didn't love the deal. He's talked about it since, how it was a really tough trade to make, but you have to make a swing. It's Steve Cohen's first deadline. Can you imagine Mets fans if they sat on their hands and did nothing? In retrospect, we all say that's what they should have done. But at the time, the amount of pressure that was on that front office to make a move, and credit to the Cubs front office. Credit Jed Hoyer sticking to his guns that if the Mets were going to get Javier Baez, PCA had to be in the deal. So the Mets bite the bullet. They trade Pete Crow-Armstrong, and then they watch their season completely flame out. DeGrom ends up hurt. At first, it was, he might come back this season. Ends up getting shut down for the year. The Mets completely unravel without DeGrom. The Braves again win the World Series. And by 2022, the Mets again are left with only Trevor Williams. 2022, Pete Crow-Armstrong starts playing baseball again. By the end of that season, he was a consensus, not just top 100 prospect in baseball. He was a consensus top 30 prospect in baseball. And he now is starting to have a breakout season. We're going to talk about what he's doing right now, and it's not going to make you happy. I'll get to that in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling your kids back and forth to activities, or tackling the endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for the rest of your day, and that is why you should start with the perfect cup of coffee crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast you'll love. I took Trade's quiz and only took a minute, where they ask you how you prepare your coffee, what's your go-to roast level, what flavors do you like, and the first bag is sent to you. And for me, that first bag was spot on. The coffee was fresh. It smelled amazing. And honestly, it ruined grocery store coffee for me in the best way, with comparable prices to grocery store coffee. And if the first match isn't perfect, Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1 month free trial at drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. That's trade, TRADE.com/LockedOnMLB for 50% off your first 1 month trial. Drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. Today's episode is also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV, because Fire TV is now an Xbox. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair of controllers, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included. And then you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. A Fire TV stick is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games wherever you plug in. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, second gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second gen, and Fire TV Cube third gen. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. Now, Pete Crow-Armstrong has been in the big leagues for a little bit now. He had his first cup of coffee at the end of the 2023 season. That year, he split his year between AA and AAA before getting that call to the show. He posted an .876 OPS with 20 home runs and 37 stolen bases. Gets the call up, didn't perform that well in his first taste of big league action, and that sort of extended into last year, his first full season of big league action. You look at the numbers overall, he hit 237, he got on base at a 286 clip, he slugged at a 384 clip. It's not great numbers across the board. He hit 10 home runs in 123 games. But with that said, he was excellent in center field, and the offense got better as the season wore on. He posted a 582 OPS in the first half. He improved that to a 736 OPS in the second half. He hit 262 in the second half with a 310 on base, 425 slug. He had a 104 WRC plus. WRC plus is weighted runs created plus, measures hitters on a league average of 100. So he was slightly better than a league average hitter. And for the Cubs, that's really all they needed, right? If PCA was just a league average hitter who was able to give you some home runs, steal a bunch of bases, and provide you with gold glove defense in center field, that is a well above average starting center fielder. For just baseball going to this season, we ranked the top 10 center fielders in baseball, and this is by far the weakest position in the game right now. PCA was at number 7, despite the fact that he still was largely an unproven commodity on the offensive side of things, but there was some upside that we were projecting out on with that ranking, and then just the defense was that good. So we had him at 7. Now, I mean, PCA is a top 5 center fielder in baseball pretty easily. Might be a top 3 by the end of this season. I look at Jackson Merrill, and that might be the only guy that I think I would take over PCA right now, because Julio Rodriguez has been going through it the last couple of years. I really don't know what he's going to be moving forward. Michael Harris II has not been a consistent offensive player, and he has a larger sample size of being inconsistent offensively. And PCA is off to a ridiculously good start. Through 38 games, he has 9 home runs. Pete Alonso has 9 home runs. He hit 10 last year. He's got 9 right now. And you look at the rest of the numbers. He's hitting 265, 303 on base, 537 slug. He has 21 extra base hits in 38 games, 27 RBIs. He's tied for the 4th most runs scored in the National League with 29. He has 12 stolen bases, which ranks 3rd. And if you want to talk about WAR, which is wins above replacement, tells you how valuable a player has been, puts a win total on a player. Last year, he was worth a 2.7 F-WAR, which is, again, Fangraphs wins above replacement. This year, his F-WAR is already at 2.2. So he's nearly matched his total from last year in 38 games. And that WAR of 2.2 is the 2nd best mark in the National League behind Corbin Carroll, who's first at 2.5. And then you have a big tie behind him with PCA, Pete Alonso, Geraldo Perdomo, and Fernando Tatis all sitting at that 2.2 F-WAR right now. Can you imagine how good the Mets would be right now if they had PCA? They're great without him. But if you add in a 23-year-old two-way center fielder to this roster, right now you have Nimmo and Soto that each have 7 home runs. So that would be 23 home runs from your outfield at this stage of the season. And the thing is, sure, Tyrone Taylor is a very good defensive center fielder. I don't aim to knock him through this. He's been really good this year. He's swinging a better bat lately too. But the difference in outfield defense is still stark. So far this year, Tyrone Taylor has more 3 outs above average, 3 defensive runs saved. That is awesome. Pete Crow-Armstrong has been worth 8 defensive runs saved, 8 outs above average, which has him graded out right now as the best defensive outfielder in all of baseball. So an incredible defender, which always puts his floor sky high. An absolute gamer. We just actually had another article that went up on the site of Just Baseball, our all scrappy team. And PCA might as well be the face of all scrappy. he'll run into walls when a home run's about to go over it. He'll dive for a ball that he doesn't need to. He does play, with his head on fire, as they would say, which I guess is a little bit ironic because he is a ginger who dyes his hair. I think he's got like white hair with blue stars in it. He's just a guy with a lot of energy and a really exciting player to watch. It's very frustrating that the Mets could have him in their outfield right now. And you look at this team that is trying to find their center field of the future. And right now, Jeff McNeil is platooning with Tyrone Taylor because Jose Siri's out. And you're hoping that, maybe Drew Gilbert can be a guy this year. Or maybe it's Jet Williams, who's in Double-A right now. Maybe he's going to get the call up to Triple-A and play some more center field. And maybe he's the guy that's going to be the answer. Maybe it's Nick Morabito, who's in Double-A. Or maybe it's Carson Bench, the Mets' most recent first-round draft pick. I don't know if any of those guys has the ceiling of Pete Crow-Armstrong because none of them is going to be the defender that he is in center field. Now, Carson Bench can be a better hitter. Jet Williams theoretically could be a better hitter. But right now, Pete Crow-Armstrong's in the big leagues with 9 home runs and 12 stolen bases in 38 games. What does that put him on pace for? 38 home runs and 51 stolen bases. Do I think he's going to get there? Probably not. The stolen bases, maybe, because he's pretty much one of those guys that once he gets to first base, it's an automatic green light, and he's going to steal second. So he might get the 50 stolen bases. I would think the power is going to come down a little bit where maybe it's more 25 home runs or 30 home runs than 38. But he's got 9 home runs, so you really never know. He might continue to get into that power. But even if he's a 25-50 guy with Gold Glove defense, good luck producing that in your system now. That's hard to do. I don't know how many guys in baseball can and will do that. And it's just so unfortunate because as much as I'm frustrated by it, as much as it's going to bother me watching him, patrolling center field at Citi this weekend in a Cubs jersey, I understand exactly why the Mets made that trade. And it's the same fans that are pissed off about it now that Steve Cohen and the Mets front office were catering to with how they were operating the team in 2021. Win now, win now, win now. This team has been win now ever since Cohen took over. And you know what's pretty crazy? I just saw a stat that went up today. I think Metsmerize tweeted it out. And it was most wins in the first 200 games for a Mets manager. And the 2 guys that topped the list, Buck Showalter and Carlos Mendoza. And that struck me because it made me realize just how much winning the Mets have done in the Steve Cohen era. Yes, 2021, they collapsed in the second half. But they were in first place all the way up until that deadline. And then I guess it was the curse of the PCA trade. But then the next year, they won 101 games. Obviously, 2023 was a disaster. But luckily for that, because of that disaster, the Mets have Luis Angel Acuna right now. The Mets have Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford in their system, as well as Marco Vargas and Jeremy Rodriguez and all these prospects that they got because they were able to take a step back for once. The Cubs since 2021, since that deadline, they have been on a slow rebuild without that pressure of win now. And so it's 2 different directions to get to the same place at this moment, teams that have World Series aspirations. The Mets can get it done without a star center fielder. But man, they'd be better if they had one. And they're going to get to see a guy that they certainly regret trading this weekend. But what I want to do to close out the show is preview everything else about this series. It's going to be a really fun one. We'll talk about it in just a second. First, though, another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy moments, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. The Knicks are up 2-0 on the Celtics in their series. If you think Jalen Brunson's going to have a big game 3, you can combine his points in a same-game parlay with the Knicks to win. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from anytime news breaks from the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so let's talk about the Cubs as a team a little bit more outside of just their center fielder. So far this season, they are 22-16, holding a 3-game lead in the NL Central. Last I checked, there was 3 teams that were tied with a 500 record in second place. Did that hold, or did teams play today? I'm actually really curious because it was kind of funny. I guess the Reds played today. Yesterday, it was 19-19 for the Reds, the Brewers, and the Cardinals. Now, Cardinals and Brewers are both sitting at 19-19. I guess the Reds played on Thursday and lost. Now they fall to 4th place, a very tight division, but the Cubs are the team that is projected now to maybe run away with it. Recently, they have been just like the Mets, middling for the last couple of weeks. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games, 6-6 in their last 12. You look at their last 4 series. They lost the series to the Phillies. Then they took 2 of 3 from the Pirates and the Brewers, their division rivals, before losing their last series against the Giants. But if you look at what has made the Cubs this great team this year, it has been their offense, the best offense in baseball in terms of runs scored. They're 3rd most in home runs, trailing only the Yankees and the Dodgers. Along with Pete Crow-Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, and Kyle Tucker, each have 9 home runs, and Carson Kelly has 8. The journeyman catcher has been ridiculous this year, a 1261 OPS. That's not sustainable, but it's pretty absurd that he's been this hot for 22 games. Kyle Tucker looks great right now. He is heading towards a monster contract in the upcoming offseason. He's got a 942 OPS. He's got 31 RBIs. He's 10 for 10 in stolen base attempts, playing great defense as always. So Tucker is definitely a tough guy. It's a good right field matchup with Kyle Tucker and Juan Soto in this series. And when it comes to run producers, not only do they have Tucker at 31 RBIs, they have Seiya Suzuki at 31 RBIs. Ian Happ is always a slow starter, but he's also a really consistent switch hitter who has been picking it up lately. Dansby Swanson had a rough start to the year, but he has been red hot. He's hitting 341 over his last 12 games. It's a really good lineup. It's going to be a tough one for the Mets to navigate. On the other side, though, there might be some holes that can expose with that Cubs pitching staff, particularly their bullpen. Their bullpen has a 4.58 ERA on the season. That ranks 22nd in baseball. Their rotation is in the top 10 with a 3.57 ERA, which is much better. Overall, the staff ERA for the Cubs is at 3.95, a full run worse than the Mets at 2.89. So that's going to be the real key this weekend. Can the Mets pitching sustain their early season success against a very good lineup? If they can pitch well, I believe the Mets bats are going to score enough runs to ultimately win this series, but it could turn into a slugfest quick, which is not necessarily the game the Mets want to be playing in this series. Now, game 1 is Clay Holmes versus Jameson Taillon. Taillon has a 3.86 ERA in 7 starts this year, but has a 1.03 whip, which is very good. Whip is walks and hits over innings pitched. So if you were giving up just a base runner per inning, basically, that is outstanding. It really is. And if you look at Taillon's season, his first start of the year was the worst one. He gave up 6 runs to the Diamondbacks. Ever since, he has not given up more than 3 runs in any start. I think he only has 1 start with 3 earned runs. Every other start is 2 earned runs or less. His last 2 starts have been very good. 7 strong innings against the Phillies where he gave up just 1 run. And then his most recent start, 6 innings of 2-run ball against the Brewers. Taillon, in some respects, is, I don't want to say the best chance the Mets have to put up runs this weekend, but I think Matthew Boyd's better, and that's the guy that's going to pitch in the final game of this series. And I'm also very nervous about the starter in game 2 because it appears like the Cubs are going to promote one of their top prospects for that second game to make the start, and that is Cade Horton, who will be going up against Tyler McGill. Horton was the Cubs' 7th overall pick back in 2022, which you can actually say has another tie to the PCA trade because the Cubs were tanking that year, traded off all of their vets at the deadline so that they could lose in the second half. They end up with the 7th overall pick, and they get Horton. This year in AAA, Cade Horton has a 1.24 ERA in 6 starts with 33 strikeouts and 13 walks in 29 innings pitched. He has a 0.86 whip, has only allowed 12 hits in those 29 innings. So it's going to be interesting. We know MLB debuts against the Mets, unfortunately, typically go well for those other teams. This guy has really good stuff, and the Mets have nothing but minor league data and scouting reports to go off of. So it could be a tough game too for the Mets. At the same time, this is a young pitcher who's going to have to go through Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso multiple times. So can those guys drive up his pitch count? Can they make him really feel it early on? Can Mets fans in that sold-out ballpark really make Horton nervous on the mound and rattled? Because there is a world where it does go the other direction, and it might be a much easier matchup for the Mets than I am projecting right now. I just never love seeing somebody make a debut against the Mets. In some ways, I almost feel better about the top prospects type of debut coming on instead of the guy that's just been like toiling in the minor leagues for 6 years, who is finally getting his debut at 29 years old. And those are the guys that somehow just, incomprehensibly, I don't know what word I was looking for there. It's hard to fathom at times where one of those guys will, blank the Mets over 7 innings and you just have no idea why. And then they suck for the rest of their career. And that's, the past trauma of a Mets fan that's showing up on the podcast now. But hey, I'm sure you all can sympathize with me on that one. Maybe because this guy is a really good prospect, the Mets get to him, but it's going to be another storyline to follow in this series. And the final game, Matthew Boyd going up against Griffin Canning. Boyd's been a great signing for the Cubs. He's got a 2.75 ERA, really tough left-hander, has great stuff. Griffin Canning, though, has also been great this year, the 2.50 ERA. They are both tied right now in strikeouts on the season with 37. So that's going to be another fun matchup. It'll be interesting to see what the Mets do in this series. It's a really good Cubs team. I believe Saturday is a nationally televised game. It's going to be a lot of interest in what's going on at Citi Field this weekend, which makes for a lot of fun for us. I'll be covering all of it throughout the weekend, give you a show on Saturday and Sunday. As always, it'll be going up at 6 a.m. on YouTube, a little bit before that in all your podcast feeds. So make sure you're subscribed everywhere so you're not missing out on any of the content. Follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, subscribe on YouTube. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service, you can do so by finding the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. We will be talking about prospects this weekend as well, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out Locked On MLB Game Night, which is the show that takes you around Major League Baseball and gives you insight on every game that is played the night before. Locked On MLB Game Night can be found on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel, as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.